Hey, what's up guys? So Eden Zero Chapter 173 is finally out. Actually, as I'm recording this video, the chapter has been out already for 2 days. This is what happens when, the series that I follow go on breaks for like 2 weeks. I end up missing when the chapter does finally come back out, because I just completely forget about it since I'm not weekly being updated. Oh hey, the chapter's out, gotta go read that so I can review it. But anyway, the chapter is finally out, and even though this chapter is mostly just set up for a majority of it, I did enjoy it. It actually had a lot of great things, especially the introduction of a brand new OSI member. Well, I mean, not really a new member per se, but we're finally getting to meet one of the members that we've only seen through like computer screens during their, annual meetings after every arc. So it's actually nice to see that we're actually getting introduced to this character and seeing what she potentially could do as a threat to the Eden Zero crew. But like I said, for the most part, this chapter actually was pretty much just set up for what's going to be happening in the rest of this arc. So the chapter picks up with basically the ending of the last arc. Basically everyone on the Eden Zero crew is making a plan of how they're going to meet up with LZ's fleet right outside the planet Lendard. I almost called it Leonard again. And basically the plan is for the two groups to basically converge on that planet and then just kind of go to an all-out war with Ziggy. And they know it's actually going to be a very intense battle, because during the meeting they're talking about the fact that, since there's a planet that's constantly cranking out new robots, an entire robot army for Ziggy, they're going to have a lot of people they have to fight off against, even more so than they did when they were going up against Poseidon Arrow and Shura back in the last arc. So they're pretty much getting themselves ready for a giant battle. Now during this meeting that they're having, Connor actually shows up and he basically tells them, hey listen, you guys can do whatever you want, but I'm not getting involved in this. I told you where the planet is. Drop me off on some safe, distant planet outside the cosmos before you go to war. And he's just steadfast that he does not want to be a part of this battle at all, because he knows that Ziggy is after his life at this point, which just tells me, and something else that happens later on in the chapter, tells me that he's definitely going to be coming back onto the ship and joining them during this fight. Because I mean, this is kind of like the classic setup. When someone's basically talking about one specific thing so often that they don't want to do, it just means that in a manga they're actually going to end up doing it later on in that arc. Like if he had maybe said once during the chapter, or during like one page, maybe one or two panels, hey, I don't want to be a part of this fight, drop me off somewhere else, then I'd think, alright, maybe he might not be part of the arc, maybe he might not be joining the crew. But since for like 3 to 4 pages in the beginning of the chapter, he was constantly talking about, get me off the ship, I don't want to be part of this fight, take me to some place outside the cosmos where I'm not in any danger, that means that he definitely is going to be a part of this fight. Now, I'm not sure when he's going to end up joining the fight again, but Connor is definitely going to be showing back up during this arc, at the very least at the end of it, to help them escape the planet. Now, we end up finding out from Connor that apparently Ziggy already controls the entirety of the Kali Cosmos, but it did bring up the thought that I could have swore when we got introduced to the idea of the other 2 remaining OSG members that we haven't truly been introduced to, or not 2, 3 members that we haven't been truly introduced to just yet. Didn't it say that one of them were in control of the Kali Cosmos? Or maybe I'm misremembering, actually no, I think I was thinking that LZ, because she's from the Kali Cosmos, that she technically had control over it as a member of the OSG. But anyway, because of the fact that he is a wanted man in this cosmos because Ziggy wants him for some reason. Now, I do question as to why Ziggy does want him, because in this universe, he's not a member of Ziggy's crew unless we end up getting introduced to a second Connor. Because we really need Hero to basically square that circle right there. Like, what happened to the Connor that was with Ziggy on his ship as his pilot? What happened to that Connor? This can't be the same Connor, obviously, because we're in a different universe, but because of the fact that Ziggy was aware of the fact that we went to a different universe at the end of the last arc, does that mean he knows that the Connor that he had on his ship is no longer there? Or maybe the Connor came over? We really need Hero to answer this question next time we get to see Ziggy's crew. But anyway, because he's a wanted man in this cosmos, he basically demands that they take him to a different cosmos, which means that we actually end up going back to the Sakura cosmos and go to Blue Garden, where they plan on dropping him off under the care of Master Noah. And this actually leads to a pretty cool moment once they get back onto Blue Garden, because as soon as they land down, Rebecca immediately gets recognized by all her fans, and she just gets chased away by a bunch of people, which, was actually a big turnaround, or big, contrast to what happened the first time we went to Blue Garden with her, because even though she was a beekeeper back then, in the beginning of the series, she was a no-name beekeeper who had basically like maybe at most 1,000 subscribers. And this entire second half of the chapter, where they're basically just kind of touching down on Blue Garden and kind of just like basically embracing the fact that they're back on a planet they haven't been to in possibly at least over a year, the way Wise is talking about it in this chapter. And actually speaking of Wise, he actually remembers in this chapter, hey wait, we're in Sakura Cosmos, why don't we go visit Xiao Mei and why didn't we go visit Xiao Mei at any point and get her to tell us where Ziggy was? And this is when Herman actually chimes in and basically says that the planet that Xiao Mei lives on is constantly moving, so even if they did want to come back to basically the Sakura Cosmos and ask her any questions, they wouldn't be able to find her because she could be in a different cosmos by now. She could be in the Island Cosmos, the Kaede Cosmos. Basically, where she's at right now is a place that Herman says that they can't locate, so there's no way for them to basically ask her any questions. And he actually has another moment just like the one with Xiao Mei at the end of the chapter, where he remembers that Master Noah has the God Eye, or the Eyes of God, Ether Gear, and he immediately thinks, wait, why the hell didn't we think of asking him any questions about finding Ziggy? And I feel like those two parts of the chapter where Wise asking those questions is kind of like Hiro answering, or kind of like making jokes out of the questions that fans have probably been asking them. I personally haven't seen anyone saying or bringing up the idea of visiting Xiao Mei to get any answers out of her, or basically going to Master Noah and asking him any questions. But maybe Hiro has been getting some like letters or something from fans saying, hey, why don't the Eden Zero crew, if they're trying to find Ziggy, just go ask Xiao Mei or go ask Master Noah where he is? Which is a valid question, but Hiro kind of plays it up for laughs in this chapter. And I actually really enjoyed those parts. In fact, not only those parts, but pretty much the entire chapter with Shiki is kind of showcasing that he's actually still the kind of goofy kid that we've been introduced to since the beginning of the series. Because post time skip, he's been kind of shown to be a little bit more serious, a little bit more aggressive. But during the chapter, we get to see that he actually is still the very goofy, very jokey, very lighthearted character that we all know and love. Which is actually great, because I was actually starting to drift away from my impression of Shiki post the time skip. I was actually starting to like him a little bit less because he was being a little bit too serious for my taste. But seeing that he actually does still have this goofy side to him does reassure me that, hey, he's still the same character that I fell in love with. And speaking of Shiki being serious, we do get this moment later on in the chapter near the end where him and Master Noah are talking, and we find out that Shiki's actually still angry at Master Noah for basically using Rebecca as kind of like a trap to get at Drek and Joe. So he still is kind of holding that grudge from 3+ years ago at this point, which does go to show exactly how much Shiki does value his friends. Even though Master Noah has been a great ally to them and actually is someone that they can definitely trust, because of the fact that he betrayed them or actually put one of his friends in danger even once, Shiki's basically written him off as one of the few characters that he just does not like. And then one last thing before we get to the end of the chapter, we actually have this very kind of weird moment with Connor once they get out into Blue Garden that actually does have me thinking even more that eventually he's actually going to end up joining the crew, because he goes on this whole rant about his daughter after watching Rebecca, Homura, and Klein all talk to each other, and he says basically if his daughter that he had was still alive, she would be about the same age as them, which leads to another comedic moment with Shiki basically crying and saying, hey, listen, I'll be your daughter for you. And then he actually ends up revealing, once Pino brings up the fact that she possibly died so like very soon after childbirth, that no, she's not actually dead, even though he clearly said like a page before this if she were still alive, implying that she was dead at that point. So yeah, that was very misleading, but basically what he tells them is that she was actually taken away by her mother and he has no idea where she is. And it's actually the reason why he's kind of on this journey traveling from cosmos to cosmos, because he's actually looking for her. And that line right there actually makes me think that he is going to be joining the crew because of the fact that they're going to offer him the chance to find her. You know, one thing I love about One Piece is that even though the entire Straw Hat crew, their main goal is basically to find One Piece so that Luffy can become the Pirate King, each individual member has their own specific goal that they're trying to achieve on the journey. And that's actually something that I did kind of dig about early on Eden Zero, because of the fact that each member of the crew did kind of have their own goal that they were going for on top of finding Mother. Now, I mean, we have kind of gotten away from that a little bit. We haven't actually had them mentioning what their goals are besides finding Mother and stopping Ziggy. But because of the fact that he's actually looking for his daughter, and because of the fact that for multiple pages he kept saying that he did not want to be involved in the fight against Ziggy, that definitely tells me that he's definitely going to be joining the crew by the end of this arc. In fact, he actually might be joining the crew by the end of the next chapter, because once we get to the end of this one, we find out that basically Feather, one of the members of the OSI, had actually come to Blue Garden because she knew, using her God Eye ability, that Shiki and the gang were actually there, and has basically brought an army to surround them to capture him. Now, Shiki tries to sacrifice himself by basically distracting them and running away by himself while everyone else goes to the ship, but Rebecca tells him, hey listen, we're a crew, we don't abandon each other, we're going to go to the ship together. So they basically plan on charging outside of the building and just running right past Feather and her entire army in order to get back to the Eden Zero. And yeah, that's pretty much all that happened in this week's chapter. Now, there's not really much else to talk about besides the design for Feather, which I actually did dig at the design based on what we got to see in the chapter. I wish we would have gotten a better shot of her full design, because the best shot we get of her in this chapter, besides just the head profile, is a downward angled version of her, which doesn't really do much to showing off her full design, but I'm guessing in the next chapter we're going to actually get to see a full design for her character, which I'm actually looking forward to. Not only that, I'm looking forward to seeing exactly how she fights, because we know that she has the same ability as Master Noah, which doesn't seem like it has an ability that has any offensive capabilities besides possibly maybe it has the ability to see into the future slightly. Maybe she can predict things, but even if she can look into the future slightly, that doesn't mean that her eyes have any offensive ability whatsoever. So I'm looking forward to seeing exactly how she does in the fighting against Shiki. Is she just straight up hand-to-hand combat? Like, is she so skilled with the hands that basically she can take on ether capability users who actually have physical abilities? Or is she hiding a second ability? Maybe she does actually have a second ether ability that we're not aware of, or a weapon that actually can neutralize them. I don't know. Anyway, I'm looking forward to seeing exactly what Hero pulls out for Feather and her fighting abilities. But that's pretty much it for the video, guys. Thanks for watching. I really do hope you all enjoyed it. Let me know down below what you guys thought about the chapter, and I will catch you all in the next video. Peace.